Welcome to episode 11 of America in Crisis, Breaking the Cycle of Addiction. My name is David Hunt, and I am your host. We will start with showing the latest data provided by Middlesex District Attorney Marion Ryan, showing that up until June 16th, there were 85 overdose deaths in Middlesex County alone. With me today is Kate Genovese. Kate has been a registered nurse for over 30 years and is the author of Hat Tricks from Heaven. Kate's son Chris died of an opioid overdose and has a mission to help others so this does not happen to them. I met Kate last month as she was a speaker at the Soul Lantern Walk at Horn Pond. Kate, welcome to my show.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Let me ask this right out. How old was Chris when he died?
He was just turned 30.
And what did he die of an overdose of?
It was a mixture of heroin and fentanyl. He inhaled it.
And do you remember when Chris first started using drugs?
Well, his problem started actually when he was a hockey player and a football player, all around sports. And when he went to high school, he went to a private high school, and he got injured with his knee. That was the first time, and that was 9th grade. And so they gave him some Percocet.
Okay.
So that was the first time that there was a narcotic involved. Prior to that, a couple of times I caught him smoking pot when he was like 14,
Okay.
a little younger. And he said he only tried it a few times. But later on, I knew that he was doing it more. But as far as the harder drugs, the narcotics, it was just 9th grade.
And how long?
But it was because of a prescription.
And how long was he actually being treated by doctors with a real legitimate prescription?
Yeah, that went on all through high school and college. He had a total of 6 surgeries.
Okay.
Yeah, he had 2 knee surgeries, no, 4 knee surgeries altogether, and a shoulder surgery done twice. Yeah.
So his body was almost getting used to being on the drug.
Yeah, and the shoulder really hurt even after the surgery was done because he kept playing hockey, and as you can picture, if you watch a hockey game, you picture a hockey player get thrown against the boards.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that happened several times to him, and you know, it would hurt afterwards. So I would find out that he would save up some of the OxyContin and take it before each period so that he wouldn't be in total pain while he's playing.
And how long roughly was he doing this for self-medicating?
Well, the self-medicating, he did have the prescription, but he was not taking it properly.
Correct.
So probably for the last 2 years of college, he was doing that.
And when did you find out that he was doing this? Did he come right out and tell you, or did you have any indication he was doing it?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, he would say, "Mom, you don't know how painful it is. I'm having a really hard time. I really need the OxyContin." And I can remember one time when he had his second shoulder surgery, and that was, no, I'm sorry, his very first shoulder surgery, and he was in high school, and a senior, and he said he was going back to school. I was giving him a ride. He lived at a boarding school, and I said to him, "I don't think you need any more. Start taking some Motrin or Tylenol or something." And he said, "Well, no, the doctor told me I could have some oxys if I need it." And I said he was wearing me down, as addicts do. So I said, "We'll let the doctor decide." So we went in, and I said to him, "I think Gino," that's what the kids call him, Gino, should really be on something not as strong. I mean, this is very addicting, and it runs in my family. Seriously, it runs in my family. I don't want him getting addicted." And he lashed out at me. He said, "Your son is not an addict. He had a very painful surgery. He is not going to overdose on this." And I just let it go. I was embarrassed, actually. I said, "Well, maybe I'm wrong, but I think I'm right, and I'm just going to have to keep an eye on it." And so that's kind of what I did. Although he wasn't living at home, I told the school nurse and to please, you know, keep an eye on the times he's take him as prescribed.
Now, when he was even taking him as prescribed, do you feel that he was using it for the pain, or that his body got so used to having this after 6 different times it was prescribed, his body needed it for just to go on and get up in the morning?
I think he needed it for for the pain, but I also think emotionally he was getting used to it. You know, his brain was getting used to having the drug. And there's a story, a documentary put on by Nova.
Can you please share that with us?
Sure. It's just called Addiction. It's by Susan Holt, and she works for Nova Channel 2. And she just showed how they studied what happens to the brain with heroin and fentanyl, and how all of a sudden you have, after a while, you have absolutely no control over the drug. The drug almost takes you over because of the mechanism of the brain. It's the wiring just gets all knocked off. Yeah, it really should, everybody should watch the show. It really explains it well. That's why they have such a difficult time. The addicts have such a difficult time getting off of the drug. You know, they would like to, but they're just so, it just kind of just takes over their whole life.
What's good is nowadays people are treating the addicts, and I don't even like using that word, but the addicts, as this is disease, this isn't something they chose, and it's so prevalent, this is happening. And they say, oh, it's just another addict that overdosed. And that is an absolute horrible way of looking at things, because this can happen to anybody. Construction workers, police firemen, someone that gets hurt. It's out there so many different ways.
Oh, yeah.
And just they look at the person's like, oh, he overdosed. They don't look at anything, what he's done or what he's accomplished. They only look at the one bad thing in a person's life. Can we go back to the beginning? What was Chris like as a child? Forget hockey. What was Chris like as a young child growing up? What was it? Let's talk about Chris as a person.
He was a great kid. He really was. He just was very jovial. He had lots of friends, and he was always active. We have a big backyard. He'd invite his friends over, and then play stickball. They just always were. He was just always cheerful, and he was a good son. He, you know, he was very polite. He was polite to me, to my husband, his brother and sister. He got along with real well. Teachers all loved him. I mean, at a young age, I didn't see any issues. I was blindsided by this sort of. I didn't think he would do something like this. Although he has older cousins, and so I do know that he saw them smoking pot a few times, and I think that's what made him want to try it. Like he said, well, some of my own relatives are smoking pot, so I want to try it. So, you know, we laid down the law about, you know, that can go on to stronger things, because I really think it is a gateway drug. I mean, it's such a corny statement, but it's true. I think that leads to other things, because once again, it hits your brain, and it also hurts your lungs. Marijuana hurts your lungs. Can
we go back a little deeper before those Chris days when he was doing this, back when he was in, let's say, elementary school? What was Chris like growing up as the young kid?
Yeah.
Bring back to an 8-year-old kid, Chris.
Yeah, he was just, you know, he was a little, he knew he was going to be a charmer. You know, he just had a charming personality. He was like a happy-go-lucky kid. In the wintertime, him and his friends in the neighborhood would go and shovel and try to make money. There's not a lazy bone in his body, and he just would shovel all day long, and then loved to eat.
I know that.
He just, he obeyed. He was very good. He obeyed. He went, you know, we traveled a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, our family
So you
traveled a lot.
enjoy traveling?
Yeah, we enjoyed traveling. We went, we have family on the West Coast, so we did that whole West Coast trip, north to south, and into Oregon too. And you know, he just loved it. He also went with my husband and I just once, because he's 6 years younger than my other two. So it was kind of like a different family in a way, because he was so young. They were already in, Danny and Jess were in high school and college when they didn't want to come with us sometimes.
So you did the normal family things growing up. There was nothing different, nothing strange.
Loved
like every
swimming.
child growing up.
Yeah, I love swimming.
Did Chris have any relationships?
Yeah, he had plenty of girlfriends. It started probably in, I would say, 6th or 7th grade. Yeah.
And at the time that Chris passed, did he have a girlfriend?
He did. Well, they had broken up, but Heather was his girlfriend for many, many years. They met the first year in college, and they were together for about 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a long time. But, she found out about his drug use, and, she just couldn't take it. He couldn't stop.
It's kind of hard. She's stuck with him all these years, and there's just so much that they can do. And when you start using the drugs, that's how much they love you. Some people just don't want to get into that type of relationship after giving it all that in.
Yeah.
It's kind of difficult. That's why I say, when I look right at the camera, look right at the people at home. When you get into these things, people that love you, they will support you. However, there's a limit to what somebody can do. They will try to help you get help. They'll do everything they can. They'll stand by you. But there's a point when you've got to take control of your own life and say, I need to do something about this. I'm losing my friends. I'm losing my family. I'm losing my job. And I keep telling people help is available, but you need to want to get that help. What did Chris do for work?
So when he worked all through high school. I mean, he worked for a neighbor who was a roofer, so he did a lot of roofing.
Okay.
He worked at Boyle's gym in
Okay.
Winchester as well. He did that, and as he did that, and he worked for Casey and Hayes, which is a company that
The moving company?
Moving company, yeah. And so he did that, and he was a big golfer.
Okay.
Also, I forgot about that. He was a very big golfer. So during the summer, my brother would take him golfing. So he got a job on a golf course a couple of years, helping out, doing things like that. But when he graduated from college, he got a job at a lumber company.
Oh.
And it was a lumber company that sold to, like Barker Lumber,
Yes.
the smaller lumber, or bigger lumber companies as well. And he, when he got out of college, he was straight,
Okay.
as far as I know. And he stayed in Worcester. He went to Assumption College.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah, and he stayed in Worcester. And he was in the office for a couple of years, and then he got out on the road. He got a company car, and was out on the road. So he loved doing that. But that was also his downfall too. He had too much freedom being out on the road.
Now let's go off subject for a second. I see on the monitor we have Chris's photo. This is his graduation, I believe.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about that day?
That day, the graduation?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
As the proud mom.
Yeah, yeah. That was his high school graduation.
Okay. It's an important step in everyone's life.
Yeah. Well, I remember actually a bunch of them went in to have the pictures taken into Boston, and it was a fun day. And I had helped him pick out the colors, and he loved white, he loved black, and he just, we picked it out ahead of time, and then afterwards I took him out to eat in Boston, and it was just a fun day, Mother-son day, and had a good time. At the time when he was graduating from high school, I so wanted him to stop playing hockey because of the injuries.
Did he start using narcotic? I'm talking illegal. Did he legally start using drugs by prescription at this time? Or is that after? Was he ever prescribed by a doctor at this point in his life, or is that coming later?
He probably still had some prescriptions.
Okay. So he's already in
Probably
high school.
still.
He's being medicated for a legitimate reason. He had some injuries.
Yes. Yeah.
So we're starting at this phase. I'm just trying to get a timeline
Yeah.
on how early somebody can start legally because he's hurt, how this can progress. But people say, well, when did it start? Did he start using drugs recreationally? No, the man's using drugs because the kid got injured back in high school. And one thing is leading to another. And this is the progression what I'm trying to get across, that he didn't wake up one morning and say, I'm going to start using heroin or opioids. He's on opioids for a reason as early as high school. And this is the progression that's causing the problem.
And just, Dave, there's a lot of athletes that do get addicted to drugs. I don't know the percentage, but it's huge.
No,
It's
I
a
want
lot
to get,
of-
I'm sorry,
a lot of
I
that, yeah.
interrupted, I'm sorry. I want to get to know Chris, and I want our audience to know Chris as a person. I'm getting so tired of numbers. I know numbers are important out there to keep track, but this is a living human being that everybody loved. I'm not even going to talk about Chris's friends and ask you how many friends did he have, because we all know how many friends Chris had. What did Chris go out and enjoy with his friends? What do you like doing when you went out on a Friday night? I know so many things. We know the friends
Well,
he had.
I think at the time in college he spent a lot of time with Heather,
Okay.
and they used to go. I know both of them did a bartending. They had second jobs as bartenders. I think it was her family that owned a bar, and or a friend of theirs. So they would do that. They would go out with their friends and go to movies. They went on, their spring breaks. They went on trips. He went on a lot of trips. They went on a cruise in college on their break. He loved dancing, and he made sure he always was going somewhere where there was golf. I mean, he almost wished he had picked golf as his main thing, because you could go a lot of places with golf.
Let me ask you about relatives. How many relatives? Now numbers, but Chris have a lot of relatives, or was it a small family or a big family?
Big family. He had 20 cousins.
Wow.
And
So he was well off.
many aunts and uncles. Yeah.
How do you? There's no easy way to put this, not to sound crazy, but how did that affect the hundreds of people that Chris has touched in his life, just between his friends, his family? When somebody overdoses or passes away, even by natural causes, how has this affected the family and friends that are used to Chris, the phone call, the going out on a night?
Oh, it's devastating. It really is. I mean, he didn't live at home, so I wasn't used to somebody daily being in our house. But on weekends, especially in high school, he always had friends over. So I was used to that, the noise, the partying. I mean, I was there to supervise, but, I miss that, just talking back and forth. And it was lonely. It was lonely. Like, after he died, people came and visited, his friends did. But that stops. My friends kept on, but his friends, actually 3 of his friends relapsed when he died, when Gino died.
Okay.
So it was very, very hard, yeah.
Okay. Our guest has discussed the script and has discussed the show prior to taping. And before you call and say, David's a beast, how could he ever ask that poor woman this question? This is something that has to come out so people understand what you have done to your loved ones when you pass, even if it's overdose, even if it's accidental, even if it's natural causing. Chris obviously is a person that you love very much. Could you walk us through the last day you saw Chris alive?
Sure.
And we can stop filming at any given time if things go south.
Okay, thank you for that, yeah.
Just please let us know what it's like to have lost Chris that day.
Okay, well, it was May 28th, the beginning of Memorial Weekend. And the night before, he had gone out and bought some rollerblades because he decided he got a new job in Cummings Park, and he didn't want to bother us with giving him rides anymore. So he said, I'm just going to rollerblade. So it was funny because he was showing the little kids down the end of the street about rollerblading, and he was doing tricks for them and all that. And he seemed happy. He had, when you read the book, you'll understand more of it, but he was so happy he had this job now, and he seemed like it was going to work out, and this would probably help him to stop relapsing so much. He hadn't used in a couple of months. So the next day, I decided to go to New Hampshire. My brother has a place in New Hampshire, so I went alone without my husband. I went with my brothers and sisters. And Gino stayed at home with my husband, Gary. So my sister and her husband picked me up, and Gino was outside. He heard them pull up, and so we walked outside, and he kissed my sister and brother-in-law, and they talked for a little bit, and then all of a sudden my dog, Frankie, came running out, and he was hiding kind of behind the bushes. So Gino went over to him and took his paw and was waving goodbye with his paw. And I almost got out of the car to take a picture. And then my sister said, we should hurry, we got to get on the road, So I said, okay, let's just go on. I'll get another picture another time, never figuring this is the last time I was going to see him. But I looked at him as I turned around, and we both waved and threw a kiss. And we always said, we love you.
And when did you find out about his passing?
Oh. Well, that night, you know, we had our usual night in New Hampshire, and I went to bed around 11, and I called my husband, and he said, yeah, Chris and I are here. We're watching a game. They're watching some game. And he said, I said, does he seem okay? Because I still was a little nervous. And he said, yeah, he seems fine. He said, but I'm going to bed too. And I said, I'll call you in the morning. And then the next thing I know, at 2:30, my daughter called me. And she said, Mom, Chris is dead. And I said, what happened? And I said, I didn't believe it. I said, I was in total shock. And I didn't believe it. I said, no, Jesse, no. And
Do we need to take a break?
just for a second,
Okay.
I'll be okay. And my sister Carrie took the phone, and Jesse explained to her, and you know, I asked to talk to my husband, so he got on the phone, and it was so late. He said, so you can't. I said, I want to come home now, and he said, you can't drive home now, not in your condition. You're too emotional. Just wait a few hours. Wait till 6 and just leave, but don't come now. So I almost snuck out the door, but I said, no, I better stay. So my sister had a Valium. She had one Valium, and she said, why don't you take it? We'll help you calm down. So I did. I took it. And she also had a pair of rosary beads. We were a very Catholic family, and we said the rosary over and over. If I don't know if you know what that is.
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay. So for those.
I was brought up Catholic. I was
Oh,
religious.
all right. So the rosary beads came in handy, and we said the rosary about 3 times, and I must have fell asleep, and for a short time, and then right at 6 o'clock, I woke up and I said, we got to go. And so it seemed like everybody knew that Gino had died in Woburn before we did. I mean, talk about the web,
Yeah.
you know, with emailing and texting. And my husband said he went down to get coffee at Dunkin's at 6:30 at Four Corners, and one of our old neighbors said, is it true? Is it true Gino's dead? And he was like, well, first of all, so embarrassed, but he said, well, you know, yeah, and he kind of walked out the door. He just didn't know what to say. You know, he was in shock. He probably shouldn't have even gone there. And so when I got home, I had called a couple of my friends on the way home just to let them know. And when I got home, people were starting to come in. And a lot of my friends were coming in with some food, and that's kind of what that whole day went on. And you know, you have to go and decide what you're going to do, like what would Chris want, because we didn't really particularly talk about dying.
You don't plan on that at his age.
No,
Who would plan
no.
that?
Although we did talk about it because he had overdosed in the past. And I said to him, you believe in God? And he said, I do believe in God. And I said, okay, that's all I need to know. So we did have a Christian burial for him. But it was a horrible feeling, yet it was no feeling. God gives you the strength to just stand up and be strong for the time you have to stand up in front of everybody as you're in the receiving line. And I didn't want to cry every minute. And also we were waiting for my son Dan, who was in Russia, and we couldn't get a hold of him at all.
Do you think if the children had any idea how it affected their parents, that maybe they would stop using it, go get some treatment, get some help? I mean, I know everybody out there, they love their parents, but I don't think they even think about what they're doing to their loved ones, family, friends, boyfriend, girlfriend. Do you think if Chris had any idea the way this was going to affect you for the rest of your life?
Well, you know, I think that comes after they get well. I don't think they don't get it because of what happens to the brain when you watch that show, Addiction. What happens to your brain? you're not caring about anything but that next fix so that you will feel normal. You're really not. I mean, that's why people are in jail, because they steal cars, they rob banks, they do anything to get drugs, to get a fix. And so I think that if they can get into a rehab, get into a sober house, and after a good 9 months of sobriety, that's when they realize what they've done to their parents. Because you can talk away and say to them, do you know what you're doing to our family? And they know in their heads, they have an intelligence.
So they actually understand that, they see
they
the
know,
effects.
But they just need it so badly they can't stand it. It just, there's a trigger, something triggers you, and you just need to get out of your head. That's how Gino would put it. I need to get out
Friday
of my head.
just took a training course on Train the Trainer for Narcan. And one of the things that was brought up was the person's not taking it for their next fix, but they like the feeling. It's they don't want to feel miserable without it. It's like, I don't want to feel sick. They got so used to this drug. It's not a matter, I'm taking it to get high because I like the feeling. It's if I don't get my fix, I feel so bad, I can't stand that feeling. Nothing will make it go away but another fix. And I never even realized that. I thought they were taking it to get high. I mean, I know they need it, but not to that extent that they just don't want to feel bad. Can you comment on that for us?
Yeah, I think I think one of the worst diseases is addiction, because it makes you so sick emotionally, physically. Your whole body just shakes, and you sweat, and you throw up, and you hate yourself, and you want to kill yourself almost. You don't want to go through it. The pain of knowing withdrawal for the next 4 days is so horrible. And so that's why they give in to it. You know, their brain waves are telling them just go for it. And so that's why they go to meetings, but sometimes at meetings they hear people or they see people outside the meetings even selling drugs. And that's unfortunate, because it happens a lot.
Now, you mentioned Chris wasn't living with you at the time of his passing. He was living somewhere else?
No, he actually was.
Oh, he was back with you? Okay.
He came back with us.
He did come back, okay.
Yeah, for the last few months, yeah.
When things change, what's different? What are the holidays like with Chris gone?
Well, the whole first year was tremendously hard. I didn't know what I was going to do with myself, sort of. I had just had surgery myself, so I was out of work, and I do contract work, so I can go to work as a nurse when I want and pick and choose jobs that I want. So I hadn't planned on this. I had planned to go back to work, which I did do, but you know, it was just because he was living with us. It was so lonely. And my daughter, who at the time was living with a bunch of girls, and she just said, why don't I just come home? I'll come home for a couple of months. So that was helpful, having her in the house. And I started to work, and that helped me. And then all of a sudden one day, I just said, I got to do something with myself. I have to write a book. I can't let this go. This is too important a subject. And I have to describe to the world what our family went through.
Now, you had mentioned when we talked earlier, it was like a roller coaster ride. Can you tell our viewers what it was like to go through this, what the roller coaster was like?
Yeah, it was so up and down. One day it'd be fine, and you'd go to bed saying, oh, he's going to make it. I really feel like he's going to do, really get off this stuff and make something of himself, like, act like a human being again. And 2 weeks later, he'd come home high. But there was always something that led up to it. I could tell when he was going to pick up again. There was something in his face or his mannerisms, and his cheery face would change. And I would say to my husband, I know he's going to get high again. I just have the feeling. And I would be right. He'd come home and would have a talk. I mean, during this whole time, there's so much more involved in it. Trying to get him into rehabs, trying to have because he was on probation, trying to get him into a place, and having no beds available. That was the biggest and the hardest thing, because I think if that happened, maybe he wouldn't have died. You know, if there wasn't such a waiting list. We definitely need more rehabs and more sober houses.
I understand the governor just signed a bill recently that's going to open, I think, 240 more beds available, that this is such a crisis that they're doing everything they can to get these beds available when you need them and not on a waiting list.
Right, yeah. By the time Gino would have had, let's see, it was January, he came home with us. He was on a bunch of waiting lists at places, and it was May 1st. But when they called at one place and said he could come, but he was already on house arrest.
Okay.
And so it was kind of too late, because he was going to be off house arrest in another few weeks and going for a job. And he didn't feel like he needed it at that time.
So after Chris passed a while, went through, and now you wrote Hat Tricks from Heaven. Can you tell us about the book roughly, and explain why you wrote it and how this book would help people?
Sure. Well, like I said, I've written 3 other books, so I know writing helps you, you know, just kind of helps you with the grieving process, and helps you bring back memories. And I wanted to tell the truth so that when people read this, they'd understand that this was a nice young man who was brought up in a good family. We loved him. And we brought him up to do the right thing. So as I was writing it, it was actually fun to write the book, because I felt like he was right there with me. I would say, I wrote every night after I got out of work from 5 to 7 or 8. And my husband would be making dinner. It was like a routine. And I went right to my journaling and writing the book. And I'd say, Gary, did this happen? Because I was trying to put everything in the right order. And sometimes a light would flash above my head, like Chris was trying to tell me something. It was funny. And I would call people up, a lot of his friends, and say, you know, do you mind me putting your name in the book? And such happened. And I stayed friendly with his girlfriend and his mom. We still see each other. And Heather was wonderful. She was the one who gathered a lot of the photos for me and helped me out. And yeah, so, you know, I think my main purpose was, and so far it is helping, to tell them you love them, but you hate the disease.
Exactly. You never ever stop loving your child. And again, parents, it doesn't matter what your kids do. I know parents that said, I can't believe my kid was selling drugs. I can't believe my kid robbed a bank. I can't believe my kid shot somebody. Your mother, father will always love you as a person. They might hate and despise what you've done. If you kill someone, they're going to despise you. Trust me on this. But they will always love you as a person. And with that being said, you might not think they're there for you. They would rather you come to them and say, Mom, Dad, I need some help. I don't know what to do. I don't have all the answers. You're a lot older than me. You know what to do. And if you don't know what to do, you can find better solutions than I can. Go to your parents. Go to someone you trust. If you're in school, go to a guidance counselor. And again, with the Angel program going on, that's a term that's originated in Gloucester, Mass. You can walk into any police station. They're not going to slap the handcuffs on you. Say, listen, I'm a drug user. I need some help. And they will get you help. A great place to start, Woburn. You've got the Mayor's Coalition on Substance Abuse. I know that's run by Rick Jolly. There are so many other programs. You've got Vinnie Pirio, my apology, Vinnie Piro over with the HEAT program. They just ran their annual conference. They've been doing that for years along with Mike Higgins in another town now. There are so many treatment centers out there. All you have to do is say, I need some help, and make that step. We're going to go back to the book for a second. People are going to say, okay, your son overdosed. You wrote a book. People negatively look at things. So you wrote a book, she's trying to get rich. We know that's not the case, because I do know this book is available in electronic form on Amazon for $3.99. Yeah. I don't think you're getting rich at $3.99 after profits, commissions, and everything's taken out of it. Mm-hmm. But that book is out there so people can get the treatment that they need and get some ideas. Right. Why as a parent would I want to go on Amazon and get this book?
Well, it's very informational. Plus, it could be your family. It could be the family next door, and to me, it's helpful to everybody because all ages are included. You know, all ages are included in it. The parents, the teenagers, the 20-year-olds, my other son in his 30s, and you know, I've gotten a lot of emails from parents saying thank you. That this book helped me so much. Because you also feel bad about yourself. You feel like it is. Well, you know it's a family disease, and I made some mistakes. I said it in the book, and one of them was I went and bought drugs for him because earlier talking about the withdrawal pain that you have, how horrible it is, and we couldn't get him. He couldn't get into a rehab to detox. And he was so sick, I couldn't stand it. We tried to get him some Suboxone. Suboxone clinics were all full. 3 years ago, it was a lot different than it is now.
Yes.
It really is. I see a huge change in it because I'm so familiar with so much is going on still. And so finally, he said, just this once, Mom, just this once, take me to Worcester. And I did. And I couldn't believe I did it, but I did it. And people wrote to me and said, I'm glad you said that because I did it too. I had several parents say, we did it as well. Now I don't feel so bad. I don't feel so alone, like I'm a bad mother or a bad father. Did I continue it? No, I did not. But I had to get a lot of help myself. I mean, I went to Al-Anon, which is a group for parents whose kids are on alcohol and drugs, and it's a support group. So I got a lot of support through there. You know, and I mentioned that. That's another thing, another avenue you can take.
So for people watching, and this isn't going to come out right, I apologize in advance, for people that don't really have the interest in Chris as the person, which is a shame, but want some place that they can go for help, you're telling me if they get this book, this is like a manual, they can go step by step and learn signs and symptoms and how they as a parent can recognize this, and hopefully they'll hear Chris's story and realize this can happen to anybody. Because there's so many books are out there about so many people that passed, but I understand your book is like almost an owner's manual on how to get them through step by step. That's correct?
Well, it does in a way. It is, it's our life story, you know. So I went and told what we did step by step. Sometimes we stepped backwards, sometimes we made forward moves, but it gives you clues of what to do.
So for parents that don't have a clue on earth what to do, this would be a nice place to start.
Yes.
Again, it's one person's opinion, but it's some place to start, and you can recognize clues. You've lived through it, you've been through it, you can pick up little signs when your child starts using, and maybe when it's time for treatment, and where maybe to go for that treatment. I'm correct?
Yeah, and it talks about the legal system as well, and I was personally discouraged with the legal system. In both towns we had to deal with. Some a little bit more helpful here in Woburn, and I don't want to say anything negative because some of it was our fault as parents too. We made our mistakes. And I think it's a learning process. I think all of us have to learn about this disease. The coaches got to keep an eye on things. When I told a friend of his went and did a show with me a few weeks back, and when I told him Gino was taking Percocets and going on the field and going on the ice, and he said, a lot of us did that. He said, a lot of us were in pain. They were just all taking them illegally. They were in pain. You got to watch out for that. Half these kids could turn into addicts. You know, some won't. They're taking it because they're really in pain.
No, I understand.
But some will.
My apology. I understand also you have a hardcover book, and I understand you're donating all the profits to the treatment centers and to this disease. Can you go into that, please?
I hope to, yeah. I hope to do that. It depends on how much money I get, what I can do with the money. I've started to help out an organization in Burlington, and I did not get permission to say her name.
Okay, we won't say the name, then that's fine.
But anyway.
So you're basically donating the proceeds to help other people going through this?
Yeah, sort of, yeah.
Okay.
For now.
So we're not going to Hawaii on the money. Okay.
I'm not going to Hawaii.
I just wanted to clarify that she's doing this for a reason. She's not writing books to go get rich on this. That the money's going to a purpose.
No, it's going to a purpose. it's going to help. The money has already helped some people too.
Okay. Now,
So
I
I'll put
met
it
you
that
last
way.
month at the Soul Lantern Walk. Actually, it was the 14th annual Soul Lantern Walk at Hon Pond, which was run by, you have Colleen O'Toole, started this walk 14 years ago. This was brought on when her son Michael, who was in an accident, had nothing to do with drugs. The purpose of that walk is for children that die at an early age. Could be from car accidents, could be from drug overdose, it could be from anything. And that's a walk that goes on a Sunday night before Memorial Day to memorize those that we've lost. And Kate was our keynote speaker for the first time we've had a keynote speaker. Can you tell me what that was like to speak to that crowd for the first time?
Well, I didn't know. Well, I had walked it, and so I didn't really. I knew the routine sort of, but I didn't know what to expect, how long to talk, and at first I thought I was supposed to talk totally about my son and what happened, and then my husband said, no, I don't think you should do that. There's men that have died in wars, kids in car accidents, just general people. You need to include everybody in there as well as Christopher, because I wanted to get that in about the overdose problem.
Now, you have been a tremendous guest. Can I get a couple of small final words from you that we can tell our audience? Look right into the camera.
So, if this does happen to you with your child, make sure you get the help. If your a family, parents, kids, all get on the same page. Do not fight, because the addict can try to go one against the other, and parents can easily take a side of the abuser. And so really try to get some counseling if you can. Also, like I mentioned, Al-Anon, that's very, very important. And sit down and talk with your son or daughter that is using, and just tell them how much you love them, and you don't want their life to continue like this, and what can they do to help you. And search ahead of time. If you think there's a problem, search ahead of time, see what's available. McLean Hospital, I know you can call every single day and see if there's a bed open, because they're so full all the time. But I hear now it's easier to get into. Some places take insurances, some don't. You have to do your research. If you're not fortunate enough to have your child, let's say they did overdose like my Gino did, there's a lot of grief groups around. I went to a grief group at Grace Chapel in Lexington, and I did it for 2 years, and it saved my life. Literally, it brought me back to want to really live again and help others that are fighting this, because believe me, I've been a nurse for 30 years, and this is one of the worst diseases I've ever encountered in my life. Watching people suffer like this, and suffer physically and emotionally, and people not understanding them is the hardest part, because they feel the shame, and they shouldn't feel ashamed, because it is a disease.
Okay. I'd like to thank our guest, Kate Genovese, author of Hat Tricks from Heaven, for appearing today. If you'd like to contact Kate, she can be reached at kgeno67176@aol.com. Hat Tricks from Heaven is available from www.kategenovesebooks.com or on Amazon. I'd like to thank Kate for appearing. Please share the show with your friends and social media and almost anybody you can. This is super important to people that this message gets out, is hearing right from a mother who's lost a child. The show can be seen on Woburn Public Media stations in Woburn on a rotating basis. You can also access them on their website at Woburn Public Media, and it can also be seen on YouTube. For America in Crisis, Breaking the Cycle of Addiction, my name is David Hunt, and thank you so much for watching. And as always, thank you for the amazing crew at Woburn Public Media that makes this show and every other show out there possible. We cannot do it without them. Thank you.